The very first night Aditya accidentally broke the old flower pot lying in the backyard. A rusted metal box buried beneath the dry soil revealed the final trace of a child who had disappeared 34 years ago. Aditya had just graduated from college. He had a degree in his hand, but no job. He came to Delhi from a small town in Uttar Pradesh, carrying nothing except hope that somewhere in this massive city, someone would finally give him work. His savings were barely enough to survive for a month. After days of searching for cheap places to stay, he finally found a tiny rented room inside a narrow lane of Old Delhi. When the landlady told him the rent, he froze. Only 2,500 rupees a month. The moment he saw the room, he understood why it was so cheap. The walls were covered in damp stains. The ceiling fan groaned every time it rotated. Outside the cracked window hung tangled electric wires that looked ready to fall any second. Behind the room was a tiny courtyard filled with broken bricks and dead plants. In one corner stood a large old flower pot with a crooked champa tree growing inside it. The tree barely had any leaves. Its dry branches bent strangely, almost as if they had been waiting for someone for years. The landlady, Shanti Devi, was around 65, thin, quiet, and exhausted by life. She smiled softly at Aditya, but it was the kind of smile people wear out of habit, not happiness. "This room has been empty for a long time, beta," she said gently. "Clean it a little and it'll become livable." Aditya nodded. He didn't need comfort. He just needed a roof. That evening, he moved in. After hours of cleaning, he collapsed onto the bed completely exhausted. Outside, the sounds of rickshaw bells, barking dogs, distant azan, and people arguing in the streets echoed late into the night. Around 1 a.m., his eyes suddenly opened. A sound came from the courtyard. "Tok! Tok!" Aditya sat up immediately. "Tok! Tok!" Like someone was slowly knocking on the back door. His heartbeat quickened. Then he heard something else. A long, heavy breath, like a child crying for hours and finally running out of strength. Aditya forced himself to stay calm. "It's just an old house," he whispered to himself. "Probably the wind." But around 3 a.m., the sound returned. This time, along with a faint whisper, "Mom." The next morning, Aditya walked into the courtyard. Everything looked normal, except the champa flower pot seemed slightly tilted. He bent down to fix it, but the heavy pot slipped from his hands and shattered across the ground. Dry soil scattered everywhere. Then something metallic glimmered beneath the dirt. Aditya froze. With trembling hands, he pushed the soil aside. A small rusted metal box appeared. Inside it were a red toy bus, a blue thread bracelet, an old photograph, and a folded letter. The photograph showed a young woman smiling while holding a little boy in the same courtyard. At the top of the letter, trembling words were written. "To my son Nikhil, if you ever read this, know that you finally came home." Aditya's throat went dry. Then suddenly, a broken voice came from behind him. "Where did you find that?" Aditya turned around. Shanti Devi stood frozen at the doorway. Her face had turned pale. Her eyes were locked onto the metal box. "It was buried under the flower pot," Aditya said nervously. "I didn't know." Shanti Devi slowly walked closer. She picked up the photograph and touched the little boy's face with shaking fingers. "This is my son." Aditya stared at her silently. "Nikhil?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. He was 8 years old. One day he said he saw his father at the bus station. His father had abandoned us years ago, but Nikhil believed every single day that he would come back. That day, he ran out to find him, and he never returned. Aditya's hands trembled. "You reported it to the police?" "I searched everywhere," she whispered painfully. "Police stations, hospitals, temples, railway stations. People told me to move on. But how does a mother forget her child?" That night, Aditya couldn't sleep. The letter remained on the table, and somehow, the room smelled faintly of champa flowers, even though the tree outside was completely dry. At exactly 1 a.m., "Tok! Tok!" the knocking returned. Then came the whisper again. "Mom." This time Aditya gathered courage and opened the back door. The courtyard was drowning in darkness. Near the broken soil, a small shadow stood silently. It wasn't fully visible, but it looked like a little boy holding an invisible toy in his hands. Aditya slowly took the photograph from the box. Your mother never stopped waiting for you, he whispered. The shadow trembled slightly. Then suddenly, a suffocated cry escaped from behind him. Nikhil! Shanti Devi stood there crying. The shadow slowly lifted its head. The air between mother and son turned freezing cold. And then, the front gate burst open loudly. Their neighbor, Mahendra uncle, rushed inside in panic. Don't go near that courtyard, he shouted. Aditya noticed fear in his eyes. Real fear. The blue bracelet rolled out of the box and stopped near Mahendra's feet. Shanti Devi stared at it with trembling eyes. Mahendra, do you recognize this bracelet? Mahendra looked at it as if it were a snake lying on the ground. His face lost all color. For years, he had been known as the kindest man in the neighborhood, the helpful neighbor, the trustworthy uncle. But that night, for the first time, his eyes carried the fear of a man hiding a terrible sin. These are old things. Shanti, he stammered. You shouldn't think about all this again. Shanti Devi slowly picked up the bracelet. I gave this to Nikhil on his 8th birthday. There's a tiny N carved inside it. She turned it toward the light. And there it was, a tiny scratched letter. N. Mahendra stepped backward. Aditya blocked his path. You know what happened to that child. Move aside. Boy, then tell us the truth. The shadow in the courtyard shook faintly. It didn't look dangerous. It looked restless, like a child who had spent 34 years trying to say something, while nobody listened. Shanti Devi's voice became frighteningly calm. Mahendra, that day you told me Nikhil probably never left the lane. You were the one who sent me searching elsewhere. Mahendra's eyes filled with tears. I didn't kill him. The moment those words escaped his mouth, Shanti Devi went completely numb. So, you knew? Mahendra collapsed against the wall. I was only 18, he cried. Your husband Ramesh came back that day secretly. He didn't want to meet you. He just came to collect some papers. He paid me to stay quiet. Shanti Devi's eyes widened in horror. Ramesh came back? Mahendra nodded. Nikhil saw him. He ran after him screaming, Papa! Papa! Ramesh pushed him away. But the child kept following him all the way to the bus station. Shanti Devi grabbed her chest as if her heart had shattered inside her. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared. Mahendra cried. Ramesh threatened me. I thought Nikhil would come home by evening, but he never came home, she whispered. Mahendra broke down completely. A few days later I found out a private bus had crashed outside the city. A little unidentified boy survived for 2 days in a hospital. Then he died. Shanti Devi's scream never came out. It broke inside her instead. You robbed me of seeing my child one last time. She sobbed. Mahendra fell to the floor. I went to the hospital too late. He had already been buried as an unknown child. A nurse told me he wore a blue bracelet. I lied and took it back. I wanted to give it to you, but I was too cowardly. So I hid it beneath the flower pot where he used to play. Aditya slowly unfolded the letter. The air in the courtyard turned colder. The shadow now stood directly in front of Shanti Devi. Aditya began reading aloud. My dear Nikhil, if you ever return, know that your mother never closed the door on you. Every night I waited for your footsteps. Every festival I kept a plate ready for you. People said you would never come back. But a mother's heart never stopped believing. Shanti Devi burst into tears. Aditya's voice trembled as he continued. You once told me that when you grew up, you would drive buses and take me across the country. I kept your red toy bus safely hidden. If I'm gone someday, look beneath the champa flower pot. That is where your mother's waiting lives. The shadow slowly became clearer. A little boy, school shorts, a faint face, no anger in his eyes, only exhaustion. Shanti Devi stretched her trembling hands toward him. Nikhil, my child, were you all alone all these years? A faint voice floated through the cold air. Mom, she closed her eyes. I was always here. Beta, you were never lost. You were hidden from me. The child lowered his head softly. Mahendra cried uncontrollably on the floor. Forgive me, Shanti. I was a coward. Shanti Devi looked at him with unbearable pain. I don't know whether God will forgive you, but the law will know the truth. Today, after 34 years, my son finally stands before me. Let me talk to him. Suddenly, a soft fragrance of champa flowers spread across the courtyard. Though the tree was dry, one white flower bloomed and fell gently between mother and son. Nikhil looked at it, then looked at his mother. And slowly, a smile appeared on his face. Not the smile of a ghost, but the smile of a child who had finally found his way home. Shanti Devi opened her arms. I waited for you, my son. A whisper came softly. I know, Mom. The shadow slowly began fading away, like morning fog disappearing into sunlight. Shanti Devi cried, but this time her tears carried peace along with pain. Rest now, my child. A tiny laugh echoed through the courtyard. Then everything became silent. But the silence no longer felt frightening. It felt like an old wound finally receiving mercy. The next morning, Shanti Devi and Aditya went to the police station. Mahendra gave his statement. Ramesh had died years ago, but old hospital records, cemetery files, and a nurse's testimony finally revealed the truth. The unidentified child finally received his name, Nikhil Sharma. Shanti Devi visited the place where he had been buried all those years ago. She placed champa flowers on the soil and whispered softly, You are not unknown anymore. You are my son, just as you always were. 15 days later, Aditya got a job. The salary wasn't much, but it was enough. Before moving away, he helped Shanti Devi clean the courtyard. Together they planted a new champa tree directly into the earth. Beside it they placed a small wooden sign. It read, Nikhil finally came home. After that, Shanti Devi stopped leaving the door open every night. She stopped waking up at every sound. But sometimes, in the morning, a single white flower would still appear beside the wooden sign, even when the wind blew in the opposite direction. The day Aditya left, Shanti Devi touched his forehead lovingly. You came here as a tenant, Beta, but you opened a breath inside me that had been trapped for 34 years. Aditya's eyes filled with tears. I think Nikhil brought me here himself. Shanti Devi smiled softly toward the courtyard. The leaves of the tiny champa plant moved gently in the breeze. Children laughed somewhere far away in the lane, and as Aditya walked away, he heard it clearly, the soft laughter of a little boy, free, peaceful, fading into the distance. And this time, he wasn't afraid, because some homes are not haunted by hatred, they are haunted by unfinished love. And some souls do not seek revenge. They only wait for someone to finally say, You came home. Yellow Heart, if this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Soul Stories by NK. Tell us in the comments. Do you believe some souls never leave until love finds them again? And remember, some people disappear from the world, but never from a mother's heart. Sparkle's Soul Stories by NK. Feel it. Live it. Remember it.